midst of noise, there's a voice so powerful, it doesn't speak. It listens. It observes. It waits. It understands. That voice is silence. And today we begin a journey into the quiet strength that Stoicism has championed for centuries. Welcome to the silent strength, unveiling Stoicism's core. Not just a video, but a turning point. A return to something ancient and deeply human. Close your eyes for a second. Picture a crowded room. Voices layered over voices. Everyone rushing to be heard. Opinions, judgments, arguments, all fighting for space. Now, imagine someone standing still, not speaking, just being, calm, focused, present. People start to notice. The noise doesn't faze them. The chaos rolls off their skin like rain off stone. And suddenly, silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. That is the beginning of mastery. And that is what we are here to uncover. There's a saying by Sun Tzu: in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. The Stoics would have nodded in agreement. Because while the world screams for attention, validation, and urgency, Stoicism whispers something different. Hold your ground. Choose your words. Honor your time. Protect your peace. In silence lies opportunity. In silence lives clarity. In silence awakens power. You see, silence is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of something deeper. Intention, awareness, control. It's not weakness. It's not avoidance. It's not withdrawal. It is strength under restraint. It's calm beneath pressure. It's presence without performance. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all recognized this. They knew that true wisdom doesn't always speak. Sometimes it watches, it waits, it learns. And then, when the time is right, it speaks with precision, with impact, with purpose. Why do people who speak less often hold more power in a room? Because their silence isn't empty. It's full of observation, full of thought, full of presence. The person who doesn't rush to respond, the one who listens without reacting, the one who pauses before speaking, that person is centered. That person is aware. That person is not owned by the moment. They own the moment. This is the Stoic path. Not just philosophy, but a lifestyle, a mindset, a posture. And it begins with silence. In the modern world, silence is rare. We live in an age of compulsive expression. Scroll, click, post, argue, react. It's all noise. And if you're not careful, you'll drown in it. But Stoicism teaches something radical in today's culture. You don't need to comment on everything. You don't need to prove your worth in words. You don't need to be the loudest voice to be heard. Your stillness is your strength. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you sat in total silence, not feeling anxious to fill the space? When was the last time you heard your own thoughts clearly, without interruption? When was the last time you felt still? If you can't remember, you're not alone. But that's why this journey matters. Because silence is not just something you experience. It's something you practice. It's a skill, a discipline, a way of living. And the more you practice it, the more resilient you become. Imagine this. Every morning before the chaos begins, you sit quietly. No phone, no music. Just breathe. Just stillness. You let the thoughts come and go like clouds. You observe, you reflect, you ground yourself. That moment, that practice, becomes your armor. Because the world will pull at you. People will try to provoke you. Emotions will rise. But with silence, practiced silence, you respond with poise, not panic. You move with clarity, not confusion. You act with virtue, not ego. And here's the truth most people miss. Speaking less doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means what you do say matters more. Every word becomes a choice, not a reaction. Every pause becomes a moment of reflection, not hesitation. And the result? You command more respect. You build more trust. You become someone whose presence speaks louder than noise ever could. That's not just charisma. That's Stoic command. So what's our first Stoic trait of those who speak less? It's this. They value depth over noise. They're not in a hurry to fill space. They don't need to prove themselves. They don't fear silence. They own it. And because of that, they're more powerful, more composed, and more respected than those who constantly speak without purpose. This isn't just about being quiet. It's about being intentional. It's about letting stillness shape you. In the next part, we'll explore how silence confuses your opponent. How, in moments of conflict, your restraint becomes a weapon, a strategy, a mystery they can't figure out. But for now, breathe. Let this sink in. You don't need more noise to be heard. You don't need more words to prove your strength. Silence is enough. And in that silence, you'll discover who you truly are. Not every war is fought with weapons. Not every debate is won with words. And not every opponent is defeated by argument. Sometimes, silence is the sharpest sword. Think of a time you were in a disagreement, maybe with a colleague, a friend, or someone who just wanted to provoke a reaction. The heat rises. The tone sharpens. They wait for your defense, but you give them none. You say nothing. Instead of flinching, you remain calm. Instead of reacting, you breathe. Instead of feeding the fire, you become the stillness that puts it out. And suddenly, they're off balance. They expect noise. You give them nothing. They expect a counterattack. You offer stillness. They push harder, and you remain unmoved. That is Stoic power. Silence, when used with wisdom, unsettles people. Not because it's aggressive, not because it's rude, but because it forces the other person to sit with themselves, their assumptions, their projections, their expectations. And when those are not met with predictable reactions, their confidence begins to erode. It's not manipulation. It's mastery. Mastery over yourself. Mastery over your impulses. Mastery over the moment. The Stoics taught us that power comes from reaction control, that our strength is not in how loudly we speak, but in how deeply we listen, how clearly we see, and how wisely we respond. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Now extend that idea to conflict. We waste energy arguing. We waste time defending our egos. We waste clarity trying to prove a point. But silence conserves power. It redirects that energy inward, into awareness, into calm, into intelligent action. Let's go deeper. When you withhold words in a heated moment, something fascinating happens. The other person begins to project. They fill in the silence with their own fears, their insecurities, their assumptions. They ask themselves, why isn't he responding? Is he angry? Is he planning something? Did I misstep? You become a mirror, and that reflection makes them uneasy. Why? Because silence removes the obvious, and in its place it plants mystery. And mystery creates influence. We live in an era where everyone is expected to respond instantly. Someone texts, reply. Someone critiques, defend. Someone argues, counter. But the Stoic doesn't play that game. The Stoic pauses, observes, waits for the fog to clear. And then, if needed, they speak with calm precision. In doing so, they turn silence into strategy, stillness into strength. Now let's be clear. Silence is not passivity. It's not avoiding conflict. It's not weakness. It's a choice, a disciplined, deliberate, strategic choice. It says, I don't owe you a reaction. I don't need to prove myself. I am not here to compete. I am here to command. And that command begins with composure. When Marcus Aurelius faced pressure as a Roman emperor from war, politics, betrayal, he didn't scream or rage. He reflected. He wrote. He meditated. He paused. Why? Because he knew that silence is the breeding ground of clarity, that if he reacted impulsively, he'd be controlled by the moment instead of controlling it. And this is something we must learn in our own lives, in meetings, in negotiations, in arguments with loved ones, in social dynamics. The person who can sit with silence holds the upper hand because they are no longer chasing control. They are control. Let's talk practically. Next time you're in a tense conversation, try this. Let there be a pause. Don't rush to fill it. Let the silence stretch, even if it feels uncomfortable. Watch what happens. They may reveal more than they meant to. They may soften their tone. They may stumble. Why? Because you didn't play their game. You changed the rules. You brought Stoic energy to a chaotic exchange. And chaos cannot survive where stillness stands firm. Silence allows you to observe the other person's true intentions. Catch the words between the lines. Listen not just to what's said, but to what's left unsaid. Reflect instead of react. Stay rooted in your values, not pulled by emotion. And most importantly, it gives you the power to choose your next move. Wisely. So what's the Stoic trait we learn here? They let silence speak for them. They don't react. They respond. They don't perform. They observe. They don't fight for power. They embody it. And in doing so, they command attention, respect, and influence, all without raising their voice. In our next chapter, we explore how eliminating distractions, both external and internal, can strengthen your silence and sharpen your presence even more. But for now, let the lesson settle. The next time you're challenged, pause, hold still, let them wonder, let them unravel. And in that silence, you'll find your strongest weapon, yourself in a world of noise. Silence is a rebellion, but in a world of distraction, focus is a superpower. And the Stoics knew this well, because silence is not just about your voice, it's about your mind. Today, we venture into the internal world, the landscape of your attention, and uncover the Stoic secret to sharpening clarity, deepening focus, and finding peace in a world designed to pull you away from yourself. This is the art of eliminating distraction. Distraction is not just an inconvenience. It is a thief. It steals your time, your energy, your presence, your purpose, and perhaps most dangerously, it steals your awareness. The constant pings, the infinite scroll, the flood of opinions, alerts, updates. Each one pulls you further from what matters, further from silence, further from yourself. But Stoicism offers a different path. Not one of escape, but one of disciplined presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't have a smartphone. He didn't have email. But even in ancient Rome, he understood this timeless truth. Your focus is sacred. And if you don't protect it, the world will hijack it. So what does it mean to eliminate distraction in the modern world? Let's start simple. You design your environment to reflect your values. If your phone is the first thing you reach for in the morning, your day begins with noise, not clarity. If your workspace is cluttered with tabs, alerts, and to-do lists, your mind reflects that same chaos. If your evenings are filled with mindless entertainment, your soul doesn't rest. It simply numbs. The Stoic doesn't surrender to that. The Stoic chooses. Here's a Stoic exercise for today's world. Control your inputs. Silence the non-essential. Curate what enters your mind the same way a warrior sharpens their blade, with purpose and precision. This means turning off non-urgent notifications, setting dedicated times for social media or news, creating physical space for silence, even if it's just 15 minutes a day, not because the world is evil, but because your mind is valuable. And attention is a finite resource. Every time you give it away mindlessly, you dilute your presence. And the Stoic knows presence is power. But eliminating distraction is not just about the external. Let's go deeper. What about the inner noise? The doubts, the overthinking, the stories we tell ourselves, the mental clutter that fills every moment of pause. You see, the real battlefield is within, and the Stoic prepares for this battle, not with avoidance, but with awareness. Here's how they do it. Step 1. Detach from what you can't control. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." When your mind is occupied by what others think, by outcomes you can't control, by fears that haven't happened, you're distracted from the only place where power exists, this moment. The Stoic clears away that noise. They return to the present, to the breath, to the next right action. That is mental clarity. That is inner silence. Step 2. Reflect daily. Eliminating distraction is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, like cleaning a room. You don't do it once and forget it. You return, you reassess, you realign. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations for this very reason, a way to purge the mind, organize thoughts, and reconnect with purpose. Today, you can do the same. Grab a journal. Ask yourself, what consumed my attention today? Was it worth it? What can I remove tomorrow? What can I protect? This is Stoic hygiene for the soul, and it builds clarity like nothing else. Step 3. Embrace stillness without guilt. We've been trained to believe that silence is laziness, that stillness is wasted time. But that's a lie. Stillness is where strength is born. It's in the quiet moments that the mind resets, recalibrates, reclaims itself. Sit with silence. Let the thoughts come and go. Observe them. Don't chase them. This is meditation. This is mindfulness. This is the Stoic's retreat, not from life, but into the heart of it. And here's the beautiful result. When you begin eliminating distractions, both external and internal, you begin to see more clearly. You listen more deeply. You act more intentionally. You become fully present in your life. Conversations become richer. Work becomes more focused. Relationships become more authentic. And your inner world becomes quiet, not empty, not numb, but clear, clean, centered. That is the gift of eliminating distraction. So what is the Stoic trait we extract here? They protect their attention. They understand that every ping, every mental loop, every meaningless scroll is a cost, and they choose not to pay it. They build their lives like they build their thoughts, with care, with courage, and with clarity. This isn't about productivity. It's about presence. It's about ownership. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't react to life, but responds to it with depth, with stillness, with meaning. In our next chapter, we'll uncover how silence, when used in conversation, doesn't make you invisible. It makes you unforgettable. Because when you speak less, people listen more. But for now, step away, close the tabs, put the phone down, look around, breathe. The quiet isn't empty. It's full of what you've been seeking. There's a paradox that most people never understand. We live in a world where people speak to be noticed. Yet the ones who don't speak, the ones who pause, observe, and choose their words carefully, they're the ones who captivate a room without trying. This is not luck. This is not shyness. This is presence. And presence, brother, real presence, is magnetic. In this chapter, we're going to unpack why silence doesn't make you invisible. It makes you unforgettable. Because when used intentionally, silence draws people in. It builds mystery. It creates power. And it elevates your words to weapons of impact. This is the Stoics' secret weapon: command through calm. Let's begin with a truth you already know deep down. Not speaking is not the same as being passive. A silent person isn't disengaged. They're observing, they're measuring, they're calculating. Seneca once said, "Speech is the mirror of the mind." But what about silence? Silence is the depth of the soul. And those who master it, those who own it, carry an energy that speaks louder than words ever could. Think about someone you've met who had that quiet intensity. They didn't need to raise their voice. They didn't interrupt. They weren't trying to impress anyone. And yet, you couldn't stop watching them. Why? Because silence, when it's not based on fear, but on confidence, sends a powerful message. I am secure within myself. I don't need to prove anything. I'm watching, listening, and I see more than you think. That energy, it commands respect. It creates space for others to fill. And in doing so, it subtly takes control of the dynamic. In Stoicism, power doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from mastering yourself. And silence is the ultimate form of self-mastery. Imagine walking into a room full of noise. Everyone's talking over each other, opinions flying, egos clashing, and then there's you, grounded, silent, steady. You don't compete for attention, because you are attention, not through effort, but through stillness. That's what makes silence magnetic. It stands in contrast to chaos. It signals control. And in a world addicted to noise, stillness is irresistible. Let's get practical. There are 3 ways the Stoic uses silence to attract attention, not for ego, but for influence. First, strategic pausing. Before you speak, pause, even for 1 second. It shows you're not impulsive. It shows you think before you speak. And when you finally do speak, your words carry weight. The pause creates tension. And in that tension, attention is born. Second, listening with full presence. Most people listen to respond. The Stoic listens to understand. When you're fully present, eyes steady, body still, distractions gone, the person in front of you feels seen. And when someone feels seen, they trust you. They open up. They lean in. They begin to respect your silence because it makes them feel safe. This is the kind of presence that builds influence without ever needing to dominate. Third, holding back unnecessary words. You don't need to say everything you think. You don't need to correct every detail. You don't need to fill every silence. In fact, you gain more power by letting others speak first. They reveal their thoughts, their insecurities, their intentions. And you stay grounded. You speak only when it matters. That's not manipulation. That's self-command. And self-command is magnetic. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't just a philosophy. It's a strategy for influence. Because the person who listens, learns. The person who waits, sees. The person who speaks less, commands more. You want to be unforgettable? Then learn to withdraw your words like a sword, used only when necessary and with precision. Your voice becomes rare, and in its rarity, it becomes valuable. It's not about being silent all the time. It's about choosing when to speak. And when you do, people lean in. They listen because they know. You don't waste words. Here's an exercise. Next time you're in a conversation, ask yourself silently, do I need to speak or do I just want to be heard? If it's not necessary, stay quiet. And notice how the room shifts. Notice how your silence begins to speak for you. This is not suppression. This is disciplined expression. This is Stoic charisma. The trait here is clear. Those who speak less radiate presence, not because they're silent, but because they are centered. Their silence is not emptiness. It's fullness restrained. It's confidence contained. It's wisdom observing. And when they do speak, the world listens. In the next part of our journey, we'll dive even deeper, because silence not only attracts others, it transforms you. We'll explore the connection between silence and emotional clarity, and how the quiet mind becomes the most resilient force in a chaotic world. But for now, remember, you don't need to speak to be powerful. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to chase attention to become unforgettable. Let your silence pull. Let your presence lead. Imagine this. You're in the middle of chaos. Stress is mounting. Someone just disrespected you. Your emotions start to rise. Anger, frustration, hurt. The average person, they react. But you pause. You breathe. You remain still. You retreat into silence, not because you're weak, but because you are centered. This is not suppression. This is not avoidance. This is emotional mastery through silence. And today we explore how silence doesn't just change how people see you. It changes how you feel, respond, and evolve from within. You see, silence is not just the absence of sound. It's the absence of noise. External noise, internal noise. The voice in your head that spins stories, judgments, fears. Most people live in that noise. But when you practice silence, intentionally, deeply, you start hearing something else. Your truth. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." What he meant is simple. Silence is not a place. It's a practice. It's the choice to return to yourself. Think about it. When something triggers you, an insult, a rejection, a loss, what happens? Your thoughts start racing. Your emotions flood your system. You want to react, defend, fight, escape. But silence steps in and says, wait, pause, breathe. And in that moment of stillness, even just a few seconds, you reclaim your power. You choose not to react from emotion, but to respond from wisdom. This is the essence of Stoic strength, to stay rooted when storms rise, to remain unmoved by chaos. Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you sat in complete silence? No phone, no noise, no distraction, just you with your thoughts? Most people are terrified of that because silence forces you to face yourself, your wounds, your guilt, your fears, your doubts. But here's the truth. What you don't face will control you. What you silence intentionally, you begin to understand. And what you understand, you can transcend. This is why the Stoic doesn't fear silence. He seeks it, because it's in the quiet that he sees clearly. Let's talk practically now. How do you use silence to build emotional strength? Here are 3 powerful methods. 1. The silent pause in conflict. When someone provokes you, pause. Don't speak. Just watch. Let the energy move through you. Feel the emotion, but don't become it. That silence, that pause, is your armor. It gives you the space to choose clarity over chaos. Second, daily silent reflection. Set aside 5 minutes a day. No music, no talking, no distraction. Just sit. Breathe. Watch your thoughts flow without chasing them. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will resist. But with practice, you'll begin to hear the deeper voice beneath the noise. The voice of your inner philosopher. The voice of truth. That's the voice you want leading your life. 3. The Stoic practice of journaling in silence. Before you start writing, sit in silence. Let your emotions rise to the surface. Don't push them down, just observe. Then begin to write, not from reaction but from awareness. This transforms journaling into a tool of purification. You extract the emotional poison, not by venting it, but by understanding it. This is what Marcus did. His meditations were not written for the world. They were written to process, to reflect, to transform. That's what silence allows. Clarity through stillness. Let me be clear. Emotional strength is not about suppressing feelings. It's about mastering your response. And silence is the gateway to that mastery. When you are no longer a slave to your emotions, you become untouchable. They may insult you, ignore you, misunderstand you. But you remain unmoved, because your peace doesn't depend on their approval. It comes from your inner silence. Seneca once said, "If a man knows not which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Silence helps you find your port. It allows you to feel fully without being controlled, to grieve without despair, to get angry without losing control, to feel fear and still take action. This is the emotional clarity the Stoic cultivates. He knows every emotion is a teacher, but only in silence can you truly listen. The trait we explore here is this. The silent person has emotional clarity. They don't get lost in emotional storms. They don't react impulsively. They feel deeply, but respond wisely. Silence becomes their sanctuary, their anchor, their filter, and over time, it makes them stronger, calmer, more in control. In the next part, we'll unlock the most practical dimension of silence, how those who speak less become masters of observation. Because when you stop talking, you start seeing everything. But for now, remember this. Your emotions are not your enemy. They are signals, messages, opportunities, and silence is how you read them. Don't be afraid of stillness. Train in it, live in it, grow in it. Because in a world that reacts, the silent man responds. And that makes all the difference. There is something rare about the person who speaks little. They walk into a room and immediately see what others miss. They notice who's faking a smile, who's hiding anxiety behind laughter, who's dominating the room to cover insecurity, who speaks to impress, and who speaks from truth. They aren't psychic. They aren't magical. They're simply silent. And because they are silent, they observe. In this final part of our journey into the power of speaking less, we unlock the ultimate trait of the silent Stoic: observation. You've probably heard the phrase, "When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know, but if you listen, you may learn something new." The Buddha. This is the silent person's secret weapon. They don't interrupt. They don't wait to speak. They wait to see. They let the room reveal itself. And because they're not performing, defending, or reacting, they notice everything. The way someone's tone shifts when lying, the hesitation in their words when they're unsure, the micro-expressions that reveal true emotion. They read the invisible text beneath the conversation. That's not just observation, that's insight. Let's look at the ancient Stoics. They train themselves to observe not just people, but themselves. Marcus Aurelius journaled every day, writing down the movements of his mind like a scientist studying nature. Seneca examined his day each night. What did I do well? Where did I fall short? What could I do better tomorrow? Their silence wasn't passive. It was active attention. Because when you're silent, you're not just listening to others. You're listening to life. And life, brother, is constantly speaking. Now here's the reality. Most people are too distracted to observe. They're talking, scrolling, reacting, rushing. But the silent man, he waits, he watches, he learns. He doesn't just see faces, he sees intentions. He doesn't just hear words, he hears the energy behind them. He reads between the lines, behind the smiles and beneath the noise. That's power, because the better you observe, the wiser your choices become. You don't waste energy on meaningless arguments. You don't get tricked by flattery or fooled by appearances. You see truth, raw, unfiltered truth. And in a world built on illusion, that makes you untouchable. Let's go deeper. How do you develop this power of silent observation? Let me give you 3 methods, used by warriors, monks, and Stoics alike. 1. Observation without judgment. When you're silent, your mind will want to label everything. She's rude. He's arrogant. They're fake. But judgment blocks vision. The silent observer doesn't judge. He notices. She's speaking quickly. He keeps glancing at the exit. They shifted tone when I brought up that topic. Do you see the difference? Judgment closes your mind. Observation opens it. 2. Read the environment, not just the words. Watch body language. Notice posture, eye contact, breathing. Often, what someone doesn't say reveals more than what they do. Someone may say, "I'm fine," but their eyes, voice, and energy say something else. Train yourself to see those cues. That's where truth lives. 3. Create silent space. Before entering any situation, a meeting, a date, a family gathering, pause. Take 30 seconds of silence. Still your breath. Set your intention. Become fully present. You'll be amazed how much more you perceive. Because silence clears the fog. It sharpens your senses. It turns you into a mirror. And in that mirror, the world reflects itself. Clearly, completely. Let me tell you something personal. Some of the wisest men I've ever met barely spoke. But when they did, every word landed. Because behind those words was depth. And that depth came from years of watching, listening, and understanding. They didn't need to dominate the room. Their presence spoke louder than noise ever could. And that's what you're building here. Silent presence. A presence that sees, feels, and understands more, because it is not lost in the need to perform. Let's recap what we've explored on this journey. The power of saying less, and how silence breeds depth. How stillness builds self-control and emotional mastery. How speaking less commands respect. How silence reveals truth, both inside and outside. And now, how silence unlocks the art of observation. These are not just traits. They are tools, weapons, disciplines. And in a world drowning in noise, they make you a lighthouse. Seen, steady, silent. I'll leave you with this. The world will always tempt you to speak more, post more, react more. But the Stoic man, the truly powerful man, chooses the opposite path. He speaks when it's time. He listens when it matters. He acts when it's wise. And through his silence, he becomes undeniable. Because in a world full of echoes, his stillness becomes the source. Now you know the silent path. Walk it, live it, become it, and let your silence speak louder than words ever could.